Right. I think we're on, aren't we?
We are.
We're on. Welcome to Limitless Mindset, episode 2, Belief Breakthrough. What is it? We're going to talk about it today. All right. Can you see my screen too?
I can, so I'm assuming everybody else can.
We're in the right place. Well, if you couldn't catch that, I have a special guest on here today, Mr. John Bodner. So, John, you want to give a little intro to who you are and why people should listen to you?
Absolutely. So, yes, my name is John. I am a coach at BSB Wealthy Body Coaching, and you should listen to me because I've got some pretty good nuggets, some really good advice on how to not just change your life or change your body, but also how to change your mindset in order to do so. Because we understand that if you don't change what's going on up here, you can try to make all the physical changes you want, but they're either not gonna happen, or they're not gonna stick. So understanding the mental piece is essential.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. John Bodner. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Logan Manzanares. I own BSB Wealthy Body Coaching. I'm also a real estate professional and a husband and a father. And we're here today to talk about belief breakthrough. So this is episode number 2, belief breakthrough. And so we're gonna get into the nitty-gritty of what belief breakthrough is. Before we do, I think like this process has fundamentally changed my life, and it's changed the way that it gave me a system for me getting rid of this trash in my head, this negative self-talk, and gave me a system how I could, number one, identify that trash, identify that negative self-talk, and then replace it and upgrade it with something that actually served me better. And so that's what this belief breakthrough process is, which we'll talk deeply about it. That's essentially what this is it's uncovering the false limiting beliefs that we've created really from childhood, and change them into new and empowering beliefs that actually serve us better. So with that being said, John, tell me like what you, and you're obviously somebody who's taken on this belief breakthrough process as your own as well, and you made huge strides with it. So kind of tell me, as you've been doing this process and learning it, what is your takeaway of what a belief breakthrough is?
That's a great question. A belief breakthrough, it's a very powerful experience. I can tell you that. It's something that is very eye-opening, and to actually give it a definition, it's simply the process of, like it says right there, changing limiting beliefs, something that is a core belief that you might not even be aware of consciously, and allowing it to actually do something positive for your life. So an example of a limiting belief could be something like, my opinion doesn't matter. And then what do? Well, if you believe that subconsciously or even consciously, you're never going to give your opinion, and that you lose some confidence. You certainly won't make strides professionally if you don't give your opinion, or personally either. And it's important to understand, like, okay, that's something that doesn't have to be true. That's something that you decided is true, and you can change that through a belief breakthrough and consistent belief breakthroughs.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times, like these negative limiting beliefs that we have, we don't even realize we have them. That's just what we've always done. We never questioned them. Mm-hmm. And so if you go to think about this, like what is limiting belief? This was our episode last week, but like what is limiting belief? But it's just something that, it's a belief that doesn't serve you. It's like speaking over yourself, like I'm not smart enough, or I'm kind of lazy, or I just don't really care, And so ultimately, you take those things that you say, and you ask yourself, like, does that belief serve me, that I'm lazy, or that I'm not smart enough, or that I don't care? Like, does that belief actually serve me, or am I hiding something? Is there something deeper? Is there a pain that I'm like trying to push away that ultimately I need to confront? And that's actually what the belief breakthrough process is number one, like understanding that negative self-talk, and then coming back around and saying, like, does this belief serve me? If not, then how do we change it? Right?
For real.
So this is something that's super like near to my heart, right? And so you can transform your darkest memories into your greatest triumphs. And I like to like quote this as like, your message becomes your message. And so as somebody who grew up super self-conscious and like super just really poor self-esteem, and just always thought that everyone thought that I was ugly, and everyone thought that, man, like how can you even hang out with that kid? I just had really low self-esteem. It was like something that I hid for a really long time, and it's that anger And as I hit it, I just became more angry and angry because people just didn't inherently understand that like I was hiding this pain. Like I wouldn't even tell my parents this. I literally shared this with nobody. And so I ended up expressing these insecurities with anger. And I punched lots of holes in walls. I got kicked out of school. I got lots of fights, and I just expressed it through anger. And it was something that I hid for a really long time. And it wasn't until I started to realize that like the more I shared what my struggles were, what my vulnerabilities were, number one, it became easier, right? It became easier to let go of these feelings because ultimately I thought I had to hide them because I thought people cared. I thought people actually like genuinely cared that that I thought I was ugly. What I was starting to realize is that people don't care about anybody but themselves, which was actually really fun. I had to realize that. So like, as you listening to this, like you only care about yourself, and like that's okay, right? Which is cool because like especially in situations where maybe you go into the gym and think everyone's staring at you. I promise you, nobody's looking at you. Nobody cares about you. They only care about themselves. Um, but to kind of get back on topic with this is now as I'm about like 16 years, I would say, out of this place where I was like in a super dark spot in my life, where I was like super angry to the point where I went to counseling for a fair period of time. I really love sharing those stories of all my anger episodes, because really it helps me alleviate that pain or that feeling of hiding, but also allows me to share that with somebody else. Maybe someone who's listening to this, maybe you felt that same way. Maybe you felt insecure growing up. Maybe you feel insecure right now, right? And you express that through anger or through sadness or through frustration. And so the more that I'm able to share my message, the easier it is for me to get off my chest, but then ultimately I'm able to maybe help somebody else. And I truly believe that you can do the same thing, is that the more you share what like your internal struggles and your fears and like these things that you don't really want to talk about, number one, it helps you get it off your chest. And number two, there's somebody else out there who's got the same problems you do, who's got the same feelings you do. And you can really help somebody else out by just sharing that message with them and giving them the inspiration to then pay it forward and share their message and continue this train. And so we all can truly benefit by sharing our mess, which becomes our message. So, John, I'll let you piggyback on that.
Yeah, it's actually this one thing about the belief breakthrough process itself that's helped me out is realizing what my triumphs are and what future triumphs I still have to actually attain. And it helps me out as a coach. It helps me out as a person to be able to be like, oh man, I have overcome this, or I didn't even know that this was a struggle in the first place. Well, I'm really excited to overcome that. And it's not only a good way to realize what your mess is, or excuse me, but it's not only a good way to share your mess and make it your message, but it's also a good idea or a good way to figure out what that mess is in the first place. Because a lot of times you're not aware of what's really bothering you. Yeah, you might feel insecure, but if deep down you don't even understand why, then it's going to be pretty tough to share that message and help other people out. You have an obligation to figure it out for yourself. And that's what the breakthrough process allows you to do.
Yeah, and John, you made a great point that I want to clarify on too. Is like you must actually take care of yourself first before you can help others, and that's where just I've been doing this process for a long time. So if somebody's just getting started, you definitely got to focus on number one. You got to take care of your own stuff, because the more that you learn, the more that you grow, then eventually you have the skills that you can pay it forward. But you first must take care of number one before you start helping other people. So like you can't just help other people without taking care of yourself, which is a huge thing, especially when it comes to our health and our body and ourselves. That ultimately, like we as human beings, we always want to help other people, but until you fill your cup up first, you're literally pouring into an empty cup to somebody else, and you're not serving either one of you. So great point, John.
Thank you.
All right. So next point, if you want something new to manifest into your life, like more money, like better health, like better relationships, and more personal power, then something inside of you must change first, right? And then the little quote up below this is like, if you do the same thing over and over again, you expect a different result, like that's the definition of what?
Sanity.
Insanity,
Yeah.
right? And so, John, I'll let you lead on this one. Tell me your thoughts on this.
Well, it's something that I've been guilty of, and again, until I started doing belief breakthroughs, I didn't realize it. I constantly would change my circumstances, whether it was looking for a new position within a company or changing my major, which I did. And I was like, oh man, this isn't working out. I got to change my major because clearly it's the circumstances that are the problem, not me. And what this really does is it allows you to take responsibility for your life. And a lot of people, when they hear the word responsibility, like they feel bad about that because they think, oh, it's my fault. It's my fault that I'm failing. It's my fault that I'm doing this. But responsibility can actually be a very empowering concept, because when you realize that you have responsibility to manifest something new into your life, whether it be more money, better health, relationships, or personal power, that means you have the ability to change it in the first place. So it allows you to get out of the victimhood mentality, which again I'm certainly guilty of. Again, changing my circumstances, changing my degree, changing my role, and expecting my life to just be totally different. But until you take responsibility and allow yourself to have the freedom to say, yes, I can change this, you're not going to. Nothing's going to change.
And it's funny because like the definition of responsibility is your ability to respond, right? And so like when something happens to you, you have the ability to respond. And so you have the ability to respond negatively and say, poor me, victim, like I'm gonna change my circumstance. Or you have the ability to respond and say, I'm gonna take ownership over this and I'm going to change something inside of me rather than changing something outside of me, right? And we've all been there. And I know, I'm sure a lot of people who are listening to this can relate to that same thing that you just said about like trying to change circumstance, trying to change external factors. I've even seen this in myself and even like in my wife as well. But ultimately, it's about you being able to change yourself, right? And not expecting anything outside of like changing external things are fine. Like those things can piggyback. But the thing that matters the most is that you change yourself. It's you change your thought processes. It's you change your intentions. And ultimately, the more you're able to do that, you're able to keep that power inside of you and realize that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the weather. It doesn't matter what somebody else says to you. It doesn't matter where you live. All that matters is what's going on in your brain and what you believe about you. The more you understand about you and more you believe in yourself, the more things you can accomplish in life. Because the only thing, this is something I truly believe, and now that I've been doing this process for long enough, the only thing that is holding me back, the only thing that's holding you back is you and me. That's it. Like just our brain and our limits we put on ourselves. That is literally it. So, all right. So let's dive into a little bit more like the belief breakthrough process. So part of this belief breakthrough process is uncovering these core beliefs that govern your choices and results and consciously changing them. So what this basically means is you going into certain situations and circumstances, and like it really is questioning your beliefs. Like, why do I think this? Like, why do I think I am lazy? Why do I think I'm not smart? Why do I think I'm not strong? Why do I think that I'm not a healthy person? And once I get into and start to dissect why these things are, and then you start to like build a case of proof one way or the other way, right? And a lot of times though, the things that we believe about ourselves are unconscious, right? So we just assume things. We take things that we learned years and years ago, like from our childhood, and now they just become part of who we are today. But are those beliefs really us still, and are they really serving us? And what proof do they really have? And so that's what uncovering the core beliefs that are governing you right now means, and then being able to consciously change them. Like that is what the belief breakthrough process really, like that's what the process is.
Right. Yeah, that's the nutshell right there. And if you're able to not only determine what the limiting beliefs are, because sometimes if you don't even know what you know, right? You said a lot of the stuff that we believe is unconscious, and I'm going to totally butcher the numbers here, so feel free to correct me, Logan. I believe our unconscious mind takes in like 20 million bits of data per second or minute or something. But regardless, the ratio is insane for what we actually take in consciously. It's like 2,000 bits per 20 million that our unconscious takes in. So it's super important to figure out what your unconscious actually thinks, because it thinks a heck of a lot more than you do. Another way to say it is like your brain thinks more than you do. And if you're not aware of what that is actually happening in the background in the machinery, then you're not going to be able to fix any problem.
Yeah, I don't know what that stat is either, but it's a lot to a little. And so basically it means that our subconscious rules our thoughts and it rules our actions, unless you become conscious of it and you start to focus on it, which, like, anybody who's listening to this, you've probably never been taught that. Like, no one's ever brought this up to your attention. And so The first step is just acknowledging, understanding like that is true. Your subconscious, like it runs your brain, but the more you can turn the unconscious, and you start to make conscious decisions and make your conscious brain make a decision, you can make better choices and more belief in yourself and really get what you want from life. So, all right. So creating a permanent belief requires a significant memorable experience and a strong emotion. So John, go ahead and like take us to an example of what this means, and how do we cement a new belief or a permanent belief? And it doesn't necessarily have to be positive or negative, right? It's just a belief.
Exactly. That's what I was going to start with. Is notice that it says permanent belief, whether it's good or bad. Both processes are the same, and that's cool on one side, or because it's like, oh great, all I have to do is have a significant memorable experience and put a strong positive emotion there that'll have a positive belief, and that's true. But we're a lot better at coming up with negative ones because of that unconscious, because of survival instinct and things that we feel serves us in the moment. So a perfect example that I actually read about just the other day is someone who, let's say they audition for a play, they absolutely nail the audition, they get the lead role, they're crushing it in practice, and then they get up on day number one, they get up on stage and forget all of their lines and just completely blow it. So stage fright, whatever you want to call it, they just forget. And then what happens then? Like, that's a pretty traumatic experience, especially as a kid, right? If you're 10 years old and you're so excited to perform and be really cool, and then all of a sudden that's not what happens, then you have this belief, because your brain wants you to avoid that situation for the rest of your life. You get this belief that you aren't capable of performing in front of other people. And that can go extremely deep for the rest of your life, whether it's I don't stand up for myself, or I don't ask for a raise, or anything like that requires performing or being adequate in front of other people, will really run your life. Now, in order to counteract that, you need to come up with an experience and reinterpret that same exact experience in a way that is actually positive. And that's the whole belief breakthrough process right there in a nutshell.
Yeah. And here's it's actually really cool. And I was telling this to John the other day, is that this belief doesn't actually have to be necessarily true, right? And so the example that I'll use of that is 2 mornings ago, I woke up from a dream, right? In this dream, I got into a plane crash. Me and my wife got in a plane crash. Luckily, or not, fortunately, my kids were not inside the dream, so that means that they weren't on the plane. But me and my wife got in this plane crash, and we were one of the 8 people on this plane who survived, right? And I remember waking up from that dream, just feeling like, number one, I was like super grateful that I was alive and my wife was alive. Number two, that that it was just a dream. But that whole day, I just was like I was super grateful, super blessed to be alive, and I just like woke up excited that I had the opportunity to live, and I had this opportunity to continue to like push forward in my life. And it was all from this dream that was by no means true at all, but it created this significant emotion in me that like drove me towards this new belief was like, I need to make the best out of every single day. I need to make the day the best ever, because you never know if it's going to be your last day. And so that belief came from a dream that was not reality whatsoever, but because it was so vivid and I had those feelings associated with it, it still made me act accordingly to that dream. Now, this would be like a positive example. There is also negative examples too, right? And so regardless if something's true or not is irrelevant, but if it happens up here, like that's as true as you need to be in order for you to feel it in your heart and in your body, right? And those feelings you feel in your body is what actually makes you act. So I think that's an important thing to understand too, is that a belief doesn't necessarily even have to be true. It doesn't even have to happen. And that can be both a positive and negative thing, either way, which usually the unconscious mind makes a negative, which means we create these negative cognitions over and over again, right?
It's something that can be exploited to do the positive process, actually.
And we can exploit it, and that's what we do. That's what we do, right? So let's actually talk about this, about a negative belief, right? So a limiting belief. So this was going back to our episode 1, that a limiting belief are created by interpretations of an experience and a strong negative emotion. So that's what a negative belief is. So anytime somebody says like, "Oh, I'm not smart enough. I'm not capable. I'm overweight," it always goes back to an event that happened, and then all of a sudden, when that thing happened, that event, that situation happened, You decided about yourself that you were an overweight person, or that you were not worthy, or that you could not do it, whatever it may be. Like, that's where that limiting belief comes from. And it comes from an experience, right? And then, like John said, back to his story of the play, is all of a sudden, if you fail, then all of a sudden you feel like a failure. And that core belief, it doesn't just stop at the play. Then it goes into other things in your life. Because if you saw yourself as a failure in that situation, maybe you see yourself as a failure in your relationship with your spouse. Maybe it's in your health. Maybe it's in your finances, right? And all of a sudden you start to look for evidence of this showing up over and over again in all these other situations. And guess what? If you're looking for it, what ends up happening?
Oh, you find it.
You find it, right? So John, go ahead and piggyback on that.
What do I think of that comment?
No, go ahead and piggyback on this idea of like limiting beliefs, and then how they're created, essentially.
How they're created. I mean, it's easy. Going back to the unconscious and how much information it takes in. Not only is it taking in information, it's actually doing something with it and coming up with beliefs based on that information. Because the whole point of information is to interpret it. So if you're constantly interpreting things as evidence of you being a failure, then eventually, or right now, that's what your behavior is going to emulate, because you don't like to be wrong. Nobody likes to be wrong. So if deep down you believe that you are a failure in any capacity, you are constantly going to prove that to yourself, whether you believe it or not. It's this idea of blindness to evidence that contradicts what you believe, which if you believe something positive, then you're going to look for the positive things that support that. And if you believe something limiting or negative, you're going to look for the things that support that as well, which again is something that needs to be exploited into the positive brain.
That's fire. That's really good. Yeah, and so through the belief breakthrough process, we use this process to upgrade our beliefs. So we interpret our experiences in a more empowering way to achieve a new belief and anchor that belief in with a positive emotion, right? So this is part of this belief breakthrough process. Is now, like I talked about earlier, it's about going back into this experience. Let's say the play, right? Let's use that example. So you go back to this play experience where you bombed, and then you like reposition it, like, okay, how is that a positive thing? How do I turn this into a positive thing? What is the lesson that's learned there? What sort of benefits that came from that? And you basically reinterpret this, and then you anchor it with a strong positive emotion, right? So you look at this as like, okay, this is what it positively did for me. And this is this process of you're breaking the belief of like, okay, I'm a failure because I bombed at this play, to, hey, here's what I learned from this. And because of that, now I'm able to, X, Y, Z. I'm able to believe in myself. I know what I need to do because I knew the reason why I failed is because this, and this. But now I believe in myself. I'm a winner. I can make it happen. And then you anchor that with really just replacing those old limiting beliefs to new positive beliefs, right? Yeah, John, anything else you want to touch on?
And the reason that works is kind of going back to your idea about your dream. Your brain does not distinguish between illusion and reality. If it's there, it believes it, it feels it, it interprets it, it processes it. And I know we're really hammering on that unconscious, that subconscious today, but that's exactly why, because this is running you. And so if you can't interpret illusion from reality, again, you got to exploit that, use it to your benefit, and recreate a memory, whether it's real or not, doesn't matter. Because if this is what's going on in there and you believe like, hey, I learned all of these lessons from that, which are true because you're learning them now, but even if you didn't learn those lessons back then, that's what your brain is going to understand, and that's what it's going to believe. And therefore, that will change your behavior, which is ultimately the purpose of belief breakthroughs, to change your behavior, which allows you to manifest positive things into your life.
Fire. So good. So good. Yeah, and so this basically piggybacks on this. Like, we can't change what happened in the past, right? So we're not saying that you can go back to the past. You're actually going to change that you bombed at that play, or you felt that you bombed at play, right? Like that we can't change, but you can change our interpretation of it, and then the decision we make about ourselves and our experiences. So like, this is definitely something we just touched on, but it is, again, it's literally just what we just said, is going back into that experience and changing the way we view it and changing what we decide about ourselves, and turning it into like a positive experience rather than a negative experience. And so a good example of this would be 3 years ago, when I remember sitting there in a hospital bed, and the doctor had just left. He just broke the news to me and my wife that I had type 1 diabetes. And I remember I can still remember laying in that hospital bed, just like the first thing that hit my gut was it was just shock and a little bit of resentment, a little bit of like, why is this happening to me? Um, and then ultimately, I just like, for some reason, I just got this feeling of like, I need to make a decision, right? Like, I need to make a decision. What am I gonna do with this? Like, am I going to like play the victim? I'm gonna say, poor me, like play the sad card, or am I going to turn this into like, the best thing that's ever happened to me? And this was actually something. This was before I even like understood this breakthrough process, but intuitively, I made that decision, and I realized that I'm going to make diabetes the best thing that's ever happened to me. And by making that decision, it has fundamentally changed all my actions since that point. And actually has been the best thing that's ever happened to me. Like I manifested that. Who would have thought, right? I manifested that before I even knew anything about this. But I realized that I need to turn this into a good experience right away. And so ultimately, like we have that decision, right? And whether you want to do it in the present or whether you want to do it in the past, either way works. But the better you get at making everything that happens to you like in the present, it happens. You just turn into like, what's the positive experience right away? You get into that habit. Then you can just start moving forward right away rather than always having to look back in the past. And so going forward, like that's like every single thing that happens to me now, I always look for the positive. I always look for the way that I can interpret it and the way it's going to be helpful to me, because I don't want to have to like break these limiting beliefs again and again and again. Like I already do that stuff from my first 30 years of life, right? My next 30 years of life, I'm just going to be creating new habit or new memories that are all positive. So yeah. Anything else you want to touch on that, John?
Really, just the idea of no matter what happens, there is something positive that you can take away from it. And if that's what you focus on consistently, then of course positive things will happen to you and happen to your life and happen to your mindset and all of these things. So simply put, yeah, look for the wins. Look for the wins in every situation. And it's important to acknowledge when negative things happen to you, but it's your responsibility and your ability to choose what you learn from it.
Yeah. Um, there's a great quote by this guy named Viktor Frankl where he says there's a space between stimulus and response, right? And it's something that Dr. Cash talks about a lot as well. But like in between that stimulus that happened, you have this ability to respond, and ultimately, like that is your choice. So like everything can be taken from you. You can get all your money taken from you. You can get your health taken away from you. You can get your family taken away from you. But the one thing that no one can take away from you is your choice, right? It's your choice to be happy. It's your choice to be sad. It's your choice to smile. It's your choice to frown. But it's that choice that nobody can ever take from you. And so don't let anybody ever take that from you, because ultimately that is your decision. That's the only thing no one can take from you. And it's your ability to decide, is this a good thing or a bad thing? Is this right or wrong? Is this evil or is it positive? Right? Nobody can take that from you. And so why are limiting beliefs so powerful, right? Limiting beliefs are so powerful because like it keeps you like you're missing out on your potential and to produce and only experiencing life at a fraction of what is possible for your happiness and fulfillment. So John, tell me like why are limiting beliefs so powerful? Like, how have you seen them be so powerful in your life?
Well, as far as a specific example goes, I actually just acknowledged for the first time in my life a couple days ago that I have a fear of failure. And that's something that I denied for a long time because I was like, no, it's different than that. Yeah, I don't want to fail, but I'm not afraid of it. Well, having this fear of failure, of course, has led me to stop trying new things or to self sabotage because it's like, oh, I'm so afraid of this thing. I don't want this thing, but I'm still thinking about it. And I mentioned in episode 1 where like I was learning to ride a bike, and the last thing I wanted to do was crash into a tree. So I looked at the tree and crashed into it. So that's essentially what limiting beliefs do, is they bring all of these things closer to you that you're desperately trying to or wanting to avoid because you're afraid of it, but you're not actually taking any steps to steps away from those things. You're not looking at the driveway when you're on your bike. You're looking at the tree, which again, that's where you're going to end up. And that's why limiting beliefs are so powerful, because it feels like it's just happening to you, which allows you to be more and more afraid of those things happening to you, which makes them happen of you, because of you, to you, however you want to look at it. So it's a dangerous path to go down.
I think of limiting beliefs as like you have the ability to make $1 million, right? But you're so worried about saving that $20 that you can't get out of your own way to move forward to that $1 million, right? Because like ultimately, like you want this, but you have $20, but you don't want to lose it. But in order for you to get that $1 million, you might have to like invest that $20. You might see it go on for a while, so you can jump up here to $100, and then turn that $100 into $1,000, turn that $1,000 into 10,000, turn that 10,000 to 100, that 100 into a million, right? But ultimately, it's that limiting belief of, what if I lose the $20? What if I lose the $100? What if I lose the $1,000? Right? And a lot of that can be also applied to health, right? It's like, oh my gosh, what if I have to give up, name your favorite
Beer.
food, pizza, beer?
Yeah.
What do I have to give up? Ice cream. But what are you saying yes to? By saying no to that, you're saying yes to something else, right? You're saying yes to this positive life. You're saying yes to the person who wakes up happy. The person who wakes up and looks themselves in the mirror and like, dang, I look good. I feel good, right? I like myself, right? You're saying no to the person who's like, I'll just binge because I feel sad and depressed and not willing to acknowledge this problem. And I'm continuing to make myself overweight. I'm going to continue to make myself like not even close because I don't want to deal with the actual problem, which is me, right? So I'm gonna sabotage myself, and I'm going to distract myself with booze, with food, Netflix, whatever it may be, right? And so that's why limiting beliefs are so powerful, is because they keep us from at a fraction of what we're capable of doing to live the life that we actually want to live, which is like it is truly limitless. You can do whatever you want, but ultimately you got to make decisions, and those decisions about failing or about being worthy or being capable, like those are like limiting beliefs that'll hold you back from getting what you actually want in life, which is true fulfillment. And true fulfillment means like putting yourself out there and like continue to reach, continue to drive forward, continuing to grow as a human being, and also for the betterment of this planet as well. So,
Well said. Yeah, that's the concept. That's the takeaway.
yeah. So, with the belief breakthrough process, so John, let's talk a little bit more from a belief breakthrough process. What are your experiences from the time you started your belief breakthrough the process to where you are now with it?
Well, to start, my very first breakthrough with you, I didn't even know what was coming to my mind. I'm thankful that I was able to come up with a limiting belief at the time, because when you're not even considering these things, you're not going to know, and you don't know what's holding you back. So by doing this process for a while now, and continuing to do it for ideally years and years and years and years until there are no limiting beliefs left, it makes it a lot easier to tap into that unconscious and come up with, like, what is holding you back, what's making you feel stressed or anxious on a given day, because odds are pretty good that it's a limiting belief, or at least your reaction, an unnecessary reaction to something external. So by doing this process consistently, again, it makes it so much easier to tap into that unconscious, and therefore easier to change your beliefs. And it's just like anything else, it's a skill, and you get better at it. And the better you get, the better you are going to be, and the better your life is going to be.
That's awesome. So I'll piggyback on that, the idea of it being a skill. So I truly believe that belief breakthrough is a skill, and I think of it as just like exercising, right? But instead of exercising our body, we're exercising our mind. And a lot of times people talk about meditation, and I would say like there's probably like a form, like this is probably a form of meditation and envisioning, along with obviously like deep like psychological work of like going back into old memories. But I think of it truly as exercise for the brain, right? And this exercise for the brain, like every time you do it, every time you do belief breakthrough, you get a little bit better at it. You learn something, right? You learn what your brain is doing. You learn how to control it. You learn how it works, because it's just like the first time you go into a gym, like you have no idea what you're doing. Like there's so many machines out there. And so you got to figure out the machines, you got to figure out how to work things. And then ultimately, like your body responds also to it as well. And so your brain's the very same way. Like you have all these thoughts, you have all these feelings. And it's really about how to control these thoughts and these feelings so you can respond in a way that actually serves the person who you're becoming, or the person who you are, or the person who you envision in your head, right? And so that's what I see. Like the process is like it's emotional strength. And every time you do Belief Breakthrough, you get a little bit stronger. You learn a little bit more. And every time you do it, you get a little bit better at it as well. And so emotional strength and emotional intelligence, I think these things go hand in hand. And so every time you do a Belief Breakthrough, it just allows you to get a little bit stronger. And the stronger you are up here, well, of course, you're going to see that down here in your body as well. And as somebody who learned it the other way around, that, you know, I learned how to train my body first before I train my mind. If I had to do it all over again, the only thing I would do differently is I would learn how to train my mind first, because you can truly do, like, I could train my body so much faster if I just got my mind right first. And so this is like a super powerful process. It's you also have to be very vulnerable. You have to be really open. And I think that's really the powerful piece in it as well, is that if you're open and you're vulnerable and you're willing to dive into the process, take it serious, like, you will truly uncover some really like heavy stuff, some things that have been holding you back, some things that maybe you've been like pushing down for a really long time. But it's like, it's through those pains and through those memories that really help bring light to the surface of what you need to work on. And this is something I told John this morning, so it's just like fresh in my mind, is that confrontation is your compass, right? So those things you don't want to confront deep inside you, like, those are the things that lead you to where you want to be. And so ultimately, like, we usually want to just like push those away because they're scary and they're fear, and we don't want to confront. But like, confronting it is going to lead you to where you want to be in life. And I think that's what I believe the Belief Breakthrough process does. It gives you a step-by-step process on how to confront the things that trigger you, the things that make you fearful, the things that make you sad, the things that you speak over yourself. And it gives you a way to change those and to upgrade those into things that actually serve your purpose and serve your mission and help you get what you want in life. And ultimately get where you want, which is peace of mind and just true happiness, right? Because ultimately, like, no amount of money is gonna make you happy. No amount of like abs are not gonna make you happy, right? No amount of like awesome relationships will make you happy. I shouldn't say that. Relationships do make you happy. But just because you have, you know, one awesome relationship or you have 10 awesome relationships, like, that's not make you happy. The only thing that's going to make you happy is truly you just being at peace with yourself and who you are, and being able to wake up every day doing what you want to do, and looking at yourself in the mirror and being proud and being grateful that you're on this planet. And I think the more you understand that, like, that's the goal for life, everything else just becomes preferences. Like, of course, like, who doesn't want to have more money? Who doesn't want to have abs? Who doesn't want to have great relationships with lots of people? Who doesn't want to have like lots of people like them and respect them? But those are all preferences. That's not the main goal. So, John, anything you want to conclude on this Belief Breakthrough process? Any last words?
Honestly, I want those words you just said to be the last ones. That was a very powerful way to put it. Very well said. And I guess really what I leave people with is, this works. It's real. It works, and it's worth it. Simply put, it's worth it. And to consistently to work on something and understand, like, hey, I am improving myself and therefore improving my life. That alone is worth it. It allows you to be who you are deep down and who you want to be. And there's nothing more powerful than that. There's really not.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that be the last word, John. I'm just joking.
I know I changed my mind halfway through, but
but next week we're actually going to go over the breakthrough process. We're actually going to break it down systematically, step 1 through step 9, and so actually we're going to break down each step of the process, understand not only understand the science behind it, but understand how you can actually apply this and you actually can do these on a consistent basis, which I'll talk about next week. The consistency that I recommend. So we're going to hold that off for this episode. We'll talk about it next episode. Like, how often should you actually do these breakthrough processes, and then what is actually the step-by-step process of doing it? So whether you're having somebody do it on you or whether you do it on yourself, we're going to show you exactly how to do that, so you can take this skill and you can get emotionally stronger every single day. So, hey, thank you guys for listening. John, thanks for being an amazing host on here today. And my name is Logan Manzanares, and we are out, and we'll see you guys next week, episode number 3.